this Friday at midnight it closes, so you can still order stuff using the sweep here. You see any of our teachers walk around here, order stuff. You can get it. Closes Friday nights. All right. So, any delay? We have Mr. Neil.
Hi, my name's Neil Kelker, and I'm a senior, and this is my first time speaking at Writers Week. A quick shout out to Mrs. Eng's 6th grade email. It's lit! Okay, so my piece was inspired by a conversation I was having with a friend about how we have both changed so much since freshman year, and what advice we have to offer to others. A lot in my life has changed since my start here at Fremd. From worrying about if Michelle Obama would steal away my ice cream cookie sandwiches, to worrying about how to use a privacy curtain, to worrying about how long to hold a dab before removing my arm from the sneeze into your elbow position. 2 seconds. My high school career has been whack, to say the least. I recently found a yearbook from the 2013-2014 school year, and was surprised to see that next to my name was a less attractive caramel-colored boy with a scruffy mustache that showed the up-and-coming prowess of a bad boy, and a bowl cut that illustrated that, for him, books were easier to understand than girls. I now know that hidden underneath that soft smile and that picture taken more than 1,000 days ago was a hidden sort of dissatisfaction with my life at the time. I was very scared to talk in public and suffered from social anxiety. I cringed every time I spoke out loud and judged myself harder than anyone else could. I didn't really have fun. Now I'm sure there must be a handful of people in the audience today looking for advice on how to make it through high school and have the time of your life and not get roasted as much as me. Number 1, I don't care how long your hair is. That man bun will make you look like Prince Charming's ugly stepbrother, Not So. Full name, Not So Prince Charming. Number 2, staying on the topic of hair, I don't care how much you think you look like Jay Gatsby either. Stop parting your hair in the middle like it's the Red Sea. Every time I see you, I feel like I'm looking at a composite picture of Mount Everest, but instead of snow in the middle, it's your flaky white dick. So maybe instead of wasting money buying Instagram followers, maybe buy some Head & Shoulders instead. My God. Number 3, stop trying so hard in gym. I don't care if you think that you're Scottie Pippen, because if you keep trying so hard, you won't be Scottie Pimpin'. Number 4, stop retweeting all those pictures of matte black supercars and mansions overlooking the sea, and start trying to pass all your classes and raise that 1.6 GPA. Also, by the way, no matter how many times you retweet and favorite those pictures that promise you'll find a $100 bill in your dad's left coat pocket, it won't happen. It just makes you look plain dumb. Now I know you're probably asking yourself, why does this palm tree broccoli top looking senior want to help me? What makes this attractive and confident stud credible? Well, since the start of my senior year, I've truly become myself. I now have people I can talk to that I know can make me laugh, and a couple of friends I can always count on for a good time. Until the start of my senior year, I hadn't gone to a single football game, didn't talk to anyone outside of school, and didn't really enjoy high school like I should have. It's honestly something I regret, but I'm happy that from it I've learned to cherish the moments of life as they come at you. I found myself becoming more outgoing and going from never leaving the house to making spontaneous decisions with friends that made memories that will last a lifetime. I found myself coming to terms with my life and now realizing that I only needed a few steps to get there. Number 1, embrace the jokes that others make and realize they're just jokes. Learn to laugh at yourself. Roast yourself. I know my hair's bad. I even made a song to it to the tune of Bad and Bougie. You ready? Raindrop. Drop top. Neil's rock top needs a chop chop. Number 2, spend your time wisely. And I'm not talking about homework and that stuff. Don't waste time on people who you don't matter to. 15 years from now, a lot of the people we slave ourselves over impressing won't even remember our name. But it's okay, they'll be the ones missing out. Number 3, just have fun with it, because you'll never get these moments back again. 1 minute, you'll be a freshman walking through the halls, and realize that your school ID picture isn't good, not knowing that literally no one cares. And the next minute, you'll be walking through the halls and realizing that your Galaxy sweatshirt and puffy fro make you look like you're 47 years late to Woodstock. Number four. Oh wait, well, this isn't really for you guys, but Melania Trump, if you're watching this, and I don't know why you wouldn't be, you seem to have a thing for guys with dad bods and bad hair. You can make America great again by teaching high schoolers how to flush. I mean, I go to the bathroom to get some tissues to blow my nose, and I feel like I can really connect to those stories of trench warfare we read about in history class. Thank you. And up next is the beautiful and talented Kumani Natoa.
Second shout out to Mrs. A's 6th period AP. I'm not really much of a writer, but I just feel like Writers Week is a really important part of Fremd's culture, and I had a message I've been meaning to get out there. When I was an underclassman, I never quite understood why seniors thought they were so much more mature than us. After all, they were only a few years, and in some instances, a few months older than us. How much more knowledgeable could they be? Nevertheless, after surviving junior year and the worst of senior year, I see their point. I feel like a completely different person from the child who walked into the doors of Fremd on Wednesday, August 21st, 2013. Over the past 4 years, I've experienced many high points and low points. My life has been like a rushing current of an infinitely large ocean, constantly flowing and changing uncontrollably. However, I have a rock, my ocean floor, that despite the changes in my life, has remained constant. So today, I write a letter to my ocean floor, because without it, I do not even want to imagine where I would be. Dear Mom and Dad, how do I even begin to thank you for never-ending love? I guess I'll have to start from the beginning, from way before I was born. Thank you for the sacrifices you had to make when you were my age to make sure that I could live the childhood you never had. It must have been hard coming to the United States from a poor country like Cameroon, then having to make a life for yourself with next to no connections. Dad, you had to be a full-time student while working a full-time job as a full-time son who had to send money back to his family while paying his own school fees. I mean, that's a lot of time commitments that don't seem to add up. I can barely balance my school activities with all of my schoolwork, much less financially support a family of 10 people. And Mom, you may have had a slightly smaller financial burden, but I cannot imagine the culture shock of moving from a third world country to a place like the United States. Even if I only take into account the weather, that in itself is pretty brutal. Cameroon is located right on the equator, so it's a warm country to say the least. Chicago winters, on the other hand, are anything but warm. I've lived here my entire life, and every winter still manages to take me by surprise. So thank you, Mom and Dad, for roughing it out all this time. Fast forward several years to when I was born. I refuse to believe it, but apparently I cried a lot. People who used to visit called me the mother of all criers. I would only stop when you carried me, walked around, danced, and sang, all at the same time. I have no idea how you had the willpower to do that every single night. Honestly, if I were you, I would not have put up with a diva like me. Do you remember when you read me Goodnight Moon every night before bed? Or when you insisted on taking pictures at every semi-important event? Or when I would barge into your room in the middle of the night and nudge myself between you guys? Even if you don't remember, I do. And I don't tell you this often, but I really do appreciate the little things you have done for me. You've done a lot for me throughout my life, and while I recognize that there are many things I could thank you from during my primary school/junior high time period, that was just an awkward mess, and I'd rather not have to think about it, so I'm just going to skip it altogether. So, high school, the time of big changes, where old friendships crumble and new ones form, where people discover themselves and find their true callings. I do not believe that there exists a pair of people on this earth that could have better prepared me for high school. Academically, I was more than ready. Even though I would complain about you guys making me study too much, all of your persistence has helped me develop the work ethic I have today, which has helped me get into schools like MIT. Socially, you've taught me to become open to new experiences while still holding on to my values. You guys have taught me all the life lessons that could only have come from pure love. Sure, we've had our differences, but at the end of the day, I know that you guys will always have my back. Sign with love, your ever-flowing ocean current, Kumani. Up next is Noah Mayo.
Thank God this can actually reach me. Can I just time this over here? Alright, so I'm here today to give you guys some life advice because I've learned that I'm not good with emotional support. I'm good with giving people advice. So if at least one person can get something out of this, then my job, I'll think I've done well. You see, I just don't get how people are so good at hating in Fremd. Someone can just start a bandwagon, and regardless of whether or not you hate this kid, or if maybe you just don't get along the best, it becomes this echo chamber of hatred. You see, as a kid, I had a lot of coming to terms to do with the world, and really still do. It confuses me how you can hate someone for this thing they do, that thing they're into, or this person they're dating, or this type of person, or all the other excuses we have, because we have a lot of them. I've learned never to assume the good of others, and at this point I doubt more than a few people do that ever. And problems have started because now it's not just you can't look for the good in someone because you'll get hurt, but now you don't expect any good from someone. I learned this in my elementary school, Central Road. It wasn't really a bad school. Every school has their horror stories, their crazy teachers, crazy students, their 6th grade dating. 6th grade. How do you date in 6th grade, guys? Anyway, this school taught me that this so important lesson that people were far from good. In the former friend of mine, she was a new kid, near instant friend, and a very close one. The only problem was that this bandwagon there was one of these bandwagons that were starting against her. At first it was very small. She was just one of those people that people didn't always like as much, and whatever, you choose your friends, that's fine. But then from there came not liking to a few verbal jabs here and there, to then eventually just full-on targeting. And once she became a target, all of her friends became targets, and hence I also became a target. And rumors would be spread about me and her, and people would challenge me just for being her friend. Why would you do that? That's what they would ask. And it was constantly degrading. And as I said before, Central wasn't the worst school, so it was just verbal. Wasn't really any big deal, whatever. But it just threw my perspective around so much. How people can just how people will not even give you a chance from just one key category about you. You see, our minds love to assume and to categorize. Our left hemisphere is in charge of making sense of the world. So we like to take people and try to also put them into these boxes. And I'll admit I'm guilty of this too. I love to learn more about people and learn them more in depth, and it causes me to make bigger jumps sometimes. So some examples have been, there's been groups of people that I would be against, and people would ask me, why are you against them? And I would struggle to come up with an answer, but I eventually would, because left hemisphere trying to make sense of the world. But the reality was that I really didn't have a reason, I just was. Another less serious example was I lost a game of chess in less than 10 turns. You have to be a special type of video to do that. Sorry about that, that's getting off track. But these bandwagons, it's really dangerous, and they start up really quickly. And I even learned recently that one of my closest friends was, not one of mine, she was my absolute oldest friend, actually started that bandwagon. She only had to do one thing, just say one piece of gossip. She never put any other input on it. It just took off from there. And if one person can understand the message of this, sorry, I'm off track. What is the message of this? The message of this is, if you can't expect the good out of somebody, don't expect anything at all. Even once you get to know them, never expect anything, because there's a world of a person, there's a world of information behind every person, and by doing that, you're just fencing yourself in to just like a little plot of land when there's so much to explore. To be honest, I didn't make an ending for this, so thank you. And with that, I would like to welcome on stage Gabriel and Aranzal.
Whew. Sorry. My story actually ended last night. You got it! I wrote this last night at 2 a.m. I expected to come here and tell you a happy story, and it is kind of happy, but I have half of this written, word for word, and the rest of it is outlined. I apologize if this goes over 5 minutes. I'm going to try my best. Okay. I met a boy from the future. The time zone of Sydney, Australia is about 17 hours ahead. For almost 2 years, I've known that like the back of my hand. Time. 3 years ago, 13-year-old me. Click, you are now connected. Both of you are interested in singing. Oh my God, you're so hot. Does he have an accent? OMG, this is Harry Styles in the flesh! Oh, he's Australian. Still hot though. We introduced ourselves, and I sang to him all that jazz from the musical Chicago. He sang me some Ed Sheeran song. We talked for about an hour until my mom came home and wanted her laptop. I hastily said, I have to go, my mom's here, but give me your Snapchat, and we parted ways. Spring 2015, a year later. I didn't remember exactly what he looked like when we started talking again. He told me that he was at a party playing hide and seek. The conversation somehow shifted to philosophy, how Beyonce can't really be human, and me telling him that he's a dumbass for wanting to run with the bulls in Spain, because he will get run over and he will die. These new conversations were the catalyst. Summer 2015. The Australian school year starts in March and ends in November. 2 weeks of school, 2 weeks off. 2 weeks of school, 2 weeks off. We talked the second he got home from school. I was nocturnal, baking at 5 a.m. and waking up at 4 p.m. We talked and FaceTimed for at least 6 hours every single day. Have you ever had a 13-hour conversation with someone? This is when we fell in love. Thankfully, my mom wasn't working that summer, so she was there to witness it all. She even joined our conversations sometimes, and him and my mom formed a great bond, too. He coined the nickname Keza for her. Her name's Karen, how Australian. Thank you, Mom, for being so supportive. By the way, I don't know where you're at, but thank you. September 4th, 2015. We had been on the phone for about an hour. I was telling him about the tough day I was having, and all of a sudden he interrupted me and said, I love you, for the first time.
He went on a long rant about us and about how he felt for me and how society has kept us from labeling what we have, and he said, "You are my girlfriend." Didn't even ask me. I told him I loved him too. That night, my parents came home from dinner, and I told them I have a boyfriend now with the cheekiest smile. The next month was pure ecstasy. Every night while I lay in bed, he would whisper poetic words about his love for me, how he defied the odds, and the thing he wanted most in the world was to reach out and touch me. He planned with me and planned with my family. He was set to come to Chicago in January 2016. January 2016. 2 days before his flight to Chicago, he calls me. I'm in bed sleeping and I don't hear his call. Instead, he calls my mother. He cries his eyes out to her 2 hours. I wake up. I'm at my dad's house the day of my first semester final exam. My dad's supposed to drive me to school, but when I walk into the kitchen, he says, "Your mom is here to pick you up." I get in the car and she tells me that my boyfriend's sister had cancer. He stayed in Australia. I agreed he should have. Our relationship seemed to always be in the honeymoon phase. Every morning for a year and a half, the entire relationship, every day I woke up to a paragraph to 4-paragraph morning text. Funny and heartfelt. We rarely fought. If we did, it was some stupid intellectual fight. I remember our first fight was about 9/11 and if Bush did it or not. I remember after the fight, he was so proud of us and how we talked it out. Because we are both stubborn people and smart, and when you have 2 people like that in a relationship, usually that's detrimental. But we decided that we wanted to grow together as people and call each other out on our bullshit. Everyone needs a friend like that. Have a friend like that. I wanted to evolve and grow as people together. We had endless inside jokes. We watched Game of Thrones together, and I'm forever thankful he showed me Game of Thrones. We watched Sherlock together. We listened to music together, talked about philosophy and the progression of society. He was my lifestyle. He was my world. He was my best friend. Summer 2016. The second time he can't come. He told me he was on a youth squad of a pre-professional soccer team. This was during his season, and he said they wouldn't give him any time off. He was going to come next January. A week ago, January 29th, he was supposed to come that Sunday, 6 p.m. I got no calls or texts all day. My family stayed with me, and they cried with me, and we watched bench warmers together to cheer me up. Watch that movie if you haven't. I finally got a text from him at 1 a.m. that he wanted to kill himself. The next 2 days were hell. The butterflies that had been in my stomach was now a nuclear test site. I couldn't eat for 2 days. He finally, 2 days later, he texted me saying, "Involuntary admission, I'm safe, goodbye." I needed closure. I didn't know what to do. I went to my acting teacher. She said maybe that he had a disease called pseudologia fantastica, in which the person believes, they lie about their life and they believe it. They believe the story they've told in the fantasy that they are living in. That comforted me because I said, how could he cry with me every time that he was supposed to come here? How could he cry with me? He intended on coming here, right? There were red flags in our relationship I did not see. I barely had a relationship with his family. There were excuses and excuses, but I didn't see it. Yesterday, basically, yesterday, last night, I found out that he lied about the soccer team, and he lied about everything. My mom had him send a picture of his driver's license and passport, so all I know is his name. My stepdad found him on Facebook. He wasn't on a soccer squad, he wasn't going to the school he said he went to. All the names of his friends were twisted. Basically, I'm telling you my story because I don't want this to happen to anybody ever again. And I'm so thankful for everything I learned. And I know that he loved me. Even though he didn't show it, I know he did. I don't want this to happen to anybody again. And I could be messed up for the rest of my life and not trust people and have trust issues. And I'm not going to let this affect my ability to love and to be loved. So I just ask you to don't let this happen to you. Thank you. I'm gonna botch this, but up next is Anaya Chandhawk.
All right, good afternoon. I think it's afternoon, right? Yeah. I'm Ananya Chandhawk. Shout out to Miss Burdick's class, Amanda. All right, well, I have a little thing that I wrote about happiness. English got me thinking, what is happiness? So here it goes. At any rate, that is happiness, to be dissolved into something complete and great. Happiness cannot be defined by a single dictionary definition. To each and every person, happiness is something different. The person sitting next to you on your right may think happiness is receiving an above-average grade in class. I mean, I think that is true. And the person on your left may think happiness is through helping someone who may not be able to help themselves. Happiness is waking up each day. Happiness is smiling. Happiness is seeing others help each other. And most of all, happiness is understanding how we share the common bond of humanity. It's what holds us together, and it's what makes us the only species able to express emotion. Even though we are capable of an emotion so strong, we lack this emotion. It's fake. I mean, we find pleasure in items and people who are here 1 second and who are gone the other. We're so devoid of this emotion that our minds limit us into believing that pleasure is in the material aspects of things, when actually it's something completely different. It's the sense of being at peace and at terms with oneself and one's existence. It's accepting each other for who we are, and most of all, it's a misinterpreted state of mind. More times than not, we feel this emotion, so-called happiness. But let me just tell you, it's nowhere near this everlasting sensation. It's rather a falsehood that shields us from experiencing gratification in a true sense. This deceptive feeling is greed. Our ever-growing greed builds a wall to block out any pleasure that we could experience otherwise. As humans, it's our duty to break down this wall, which only gets higher and higher. But how do we break this wall down? I mean, we can't just expect it to fall on its own. And it just won't fade away either. It's a fire, and with every desire fulfilled, the flames only grow larger, engulfing a more significant aspect of us and our lives. And ultimately, this avarice can be only dismantled through giving, happiness, and compassion. Although giving is nearly always harder than receiving, it's the only way to attain a true stage of supreme pleasure. As these priceless qualities find a way in us, greed starts to fizzle away as well. And believe it or not, somewhere in our hearts, we have the compassion to help one another, to attempt to understand each other, and to even more so try to diminish the amount of hatred that all of us possess. In the words of Jess Bowman, darkness is the absence of light, happiness is the absence of pain, anger is the absence of joy, jealousy is the absence of confidence, love is the absence of doubt, hate is the absence of fear, and fear is the absence of faith. Life is the absence of death. Together, if we can make a joint effort to even reduce by 5% the gap between fear and faith and jealousy and even love, we can bring love to each other, then the absence of happiness will close and it'll bring us all closer together. I mean, after all, aren't we stronger together? Well, we should share a sense of pride in everyone's pleasure. We should very well share each other's distress and times of accomplishment and provide a shoulder to lean on when someone may not have one. All we really have to do is be with each other and try to comprehend why we are this way. It's really that simple. Just try it. We should at least try to be the source of pleasure for someone who may not have this pleasure. This ever-prevalent truth of euphoria is mentioned through all people from all walks of life. In the religion of Hinduism, Paramananda is recognized to be the stage of ultimate bliss. It's described as an experience of self-realization. This sense of self-realization points way to the truth that through one's identification, bliss can be attained in a pure sense. Although this recognition can only manifest itself when we humans have detached ourselves from worldly desires. We must leave behind jealousy and hatred and avarice and lust and move towards peace. So I ask you this one thing, my friends. Please turn your back on hatred and grab the hands of your friends and move forward towards peace. The only question that I have left for you today is that if we are all on this path of self-realization and peace, then why don't we help each other gain this true sense of bliss, this true sense of happiness? Thank you, and finally we have Kathleen McManus.
Hi, Kathleen.